Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me today in the Locker Room. I'm Alan Locher. Actor Zac Garred is currently starring in Occupation Rainfall, written and directed by Luke Sparke. Rainfall is a sequel to the 2018 film Occupation, which opens tomorrow, June 11th, in select movie theaters across the country and will be streamed on major platforms, digital and cable. Rainfall will also premiere in the UK on July 9th. In the sequel, Rainfall, Zac not only reprises his role as the homeless artist Dennis, but he also serves as an associate producer for the film. Rainfall stars Ken Jeong, Jason Isaacs, and Daniel Gillies, who I know, but I don't know how to pronounce his name. Occupation Rainfall is a sci-fi action film of an invasion of Australia, but with aliens. A group of rural people decide to band together to form a resistance movement against the invaders. Daytime fans will recognize Zac from his role on General Hospital, where he played Levi Dunkelman, a duplicitous conman. And when he played him, Zac was voted Best Villain of the Year by GH fans. Zac has starred in numerous primetime series, including NCIS Los Angeles, and in some of Australia's biggest television productions, such as All Saints, Brian Brown's Too Twisted, the Australian soap opera Home Away from Home, and Out of the Blue, as well as the Emmy Award series Scorched, The Complete Story. Zac also returned to Australia to shoot the upcoming miniseries Australian Gangster, which will premiere sometime soon in 2021. It is my pleasure to welcome Zac Garred to the Locker Room, everybody. Did I get that all right?
You got it right, Alan. G'day, everybody. Lovely chatting to you. You got Gillies' name, no problem at all. You nailed it.
Oh, was it? Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize he was in the movie when I was watching. I'm a big Vampire Diaries originals fan.
Right.
He was great on that.
Yeah, he's a great actor in general, and he was a big asset to this movie, I think, because he's got that sort of he's got a real darkness to him, which comes across really strongly. Yeah.
I mean, totally. I mean, the whole cast was great. You have a great cast. Very funny, but I assume it's a Daniel Gillies, Germany. I assume they are fans of his, but they told me I pronounced it right. So.
If the Germans said it, mate, you're doing good. You're doing good.
That's so funny. So take me back to Australia and what you were like as a child.
I was busy. I was like, I'd answer my pants. Like I played a lot of sport. I was outdoors a lot. I grew up with my brother and a lot of mates, and we grew up in a neighborhood and in a community that had a big park in the middle. So we spent a lot of our childhood playing sport, whether it was cricket or soccer or rugby league. But we're always pretty infatuated with movies because we grew up at that time in the 90s when cinema was such a leviathan. It was a huge thing, you know. It was Titanic and Jurassic Park and all these groundbreaking films. So we were quite infatuated with that. But
was there one in particular that had a huge impact on you?
Oh, Jurassic Park. No question. It was funny because I got such a clear memory of when it came out on VHS. And my dad took, because I wasn't allowed to go see it at the movies because it was too scary. I was only like 6 or 7. And mum said, no, I can't see that one yet. And then when it came out on VHS, we went down to Video Easy, which is like Blockbuster. And we got the last copy on the first day that it came out. I still remember going back and watching it on our old box TV in New Lambton there. But yeah, so my childhood was a very active one and very creative and very community dominated. I was very lucky.
That's awesome. So who or what influenced you? Was it the movies that actually influenced you on wanting to become an actor?
Yeah, I think it started with an innate curiosity of how movies were made. I was always sort of fascinated with behind the scenes documentaries and stop motion animation and things like that. They were things that really drew me in is the actual kind of mechanics and minutia of how you make a flick. And then
So what did you do back then to learn more of how the stuff was made?
It's a great question. So I watched a lot of behind the scenes documentaries, but my brother and I would commandeer mum and dad's old Super 8 mini DV type. It wasn't film. It wasn't mini DV. It was that weird cassette in between. So
it like popped out and you stuck it in.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, but it wasn't VHS. It was like you left it in the laundry too long. It shrunk down. So it was so we sort of commandeered mum's camera and did little stop motion animations with that, just with figurines, plasticine, and things like that. So that was always a draw for me. Is a lot of the behind the scenes action. So I got to know people like Dennis Muren, who's the VFX supervisor on Jurassic Park, and Stan Winston, and these kinds of people who built the monsters and did all the digital effects. I knew them as well as I did Steven Spielberg. So that initiated me into that.
And were you thinking about heading into sports, or was acting like the direction you were headed?
No, acting didn't really occur to me until I was about 14, 15. Up until then, I really wanted to play professional rugby league. I also wanted to join the Air Force. I wanted to fly aircraft because I love going fast, and I love I love adrenaline, and sports sort of does that, of course. But there was just something about that really drew me in too. But yeah, I played a lot of team sport growing up. So I had a lot of mates that I played rugby league with, and then the guys I played rugby league with in winter, I played cricket with in summer. So we were very tight, and that I think creates a team dynamic, which ultimately is what filmmaking is. So
Totally.
yeah, but by the time I turned 14, 15, I actually broke my foot, which turned out to be quite a seminal moment because I was off the paddock for 6 months while I healed, and all the other kids went through puberty and I didn't. So I was 12 months behind, and I was curious about performance. I was always curious about it, and then I started doing some courses in Australia, and I started acting professionally when I was 16.
Wow. Did I read that you were studying drama at a local college while still in high school?
Yes, I did that. Yeah. So I was doing what's called Trinity College of London, which is a remote kind of exam where you study for a few months, and you learn prose, and you learn classical plays. You learn a lot about the history of theatre and the history of writing and dramaturgy, things like that. So that was that occupied my time a lot while I was doing high school. And then I landed my first TV show when I was 16, and I was finishing.
You won a competition, right?
Yeah, well, this was just before that. This is about 9 months before that. I won a competition which was run by a lady called Liz Mulliner, who's an incredible advocate for child sexual abuse survivors. And this competition was a competition where the funds went back to helping kids who had experienced sexual abuse in their life. So it was quite an enigmatic and a wonderful idea from her.
But was it a theater competition?
No, you submitted a self-tape, which nowadays everybody does on their phone. But back then you had to, you picked a scene, you had to film it, and then you sent it in, and all these luminaries in the Australian industry, some of whom are now really big, judged it, and I was selected as one of the winners. And then wow. you shot your scene professionally, and then it went out to all the big agents in Sydney. And I signed with an agent in Sydney named Sue, who was delightful. And within about 6 or 7 months with signing her, I landed a TV show called Foreign Exchange, which changed my life.
Wow. What was the role on Foreign Exchange?
This was really fun, Alan. I played a little kid, a guy named Brett Miller, and there's a lot of Foreign Exchange fans out here, and it's just popped up on Amazon Prime here in America. So if you want to watch it, it's really fun.
Take a look.
Yeah, it's very cute. It's a cute show. And I played a kid named Brett who was a surfer in Perth in Western Australia, a beautiful place, who had a portal in his basement. When you turn this rock, the portal opened and you stepped through and you came out in Ireland, in Galway, in Ireland. So I spent 3.5 months shooting literally on the beach in Perth with amazing people, and then 3.5 months shooting in Galway in Ireland, all while I just turned 17. So I learned a lot about...
You were time traveling at 16 and 17 years old.
No, not quite time travel, but place travel. It was just like stepping through a doorway. So you step through a doorway.
Right. Or yeah. So like
exactly.
location traveling.
Exactly right. Yeah. So just, you step through a doorway and you end up in Galway. So that was quite remarkable. And that was a very fortunate experience for a young actor because I had an incredible cast around me, wonderful crew. And the show was quite remarkable.
Huh. I have some friends some Aussies who were born in Perth, some actors.
Yeah.
Murray Bartlett, I believe.
Yeah.
He was on Guiding Light. I used to work on Guiding Light. One of our fans, James, said I was on the 217 bus with Zach a few years ago, and he helped a fellow passenger. Do you remember that?
No, I do. I do remember James. So, okay.
I don't know if you met James, but he says that you helped a fellow passenger on that bus.
I got chatting to someone after it that there was a bus accident. I was heading to acting class down on Wilshire Boulevard, and the bus stopped suddenly because someone pulled in front of the bus on Fairfax, and the bus, I think, just about T-boned this car, and it stopped really suddenly, and everyone sort of tumbled forward. It wasn't like a catastrophe, but there were a few people who were a bit bloodied and bruised, and there was an old lady there who was a bit stunned, and I've done first aid, CPR training, and that, and I just made sure she was okay, and just, had a bit of a chat to her. She was all right, and then just kept her calm and kept her company until the paramedics arrived.
There you go, playing Superman.
This is really quite. I can't believe it. I do remember that very, very clearly. That was there's incidents like that every day in LA.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, driving in LA is take your life into your own hands.
It's Mario Kart in real life.
Seriously. So you studied film, TV, and history, right, at the University of Newcastle?
Yeah, big shout out to the Sea Pigs. Yes, I did. Yeah. I got into university after I finished high school, which was after I wrapped foreign exchange. I went into uni, and that was sort of the time where I could sort of formulate, a deeper understanding of film and theory and narrative. But history is something that's always attracted me as well.
What about it? Or what part of his, was there something, World War II or something that actually triggered that spark of history for you?
Yeah, I think people and stories, because context is incredible. And when you read the incredible stories of some people in the past, like in Australia, there's a famous Aboriginal warrior called Pemulwuy, who was like Braveheart. Like seriously, his story is absolutely remarkable. And someone like Les Darcy, who was this boxer who revolutionized boxing and then died very suddenly. Like, you go into these stories with people, it's quite remarkable. But my deep interest was actually Australian-US relations in the 20th century. Yeah, because the relationship between the two countries is quite fascinating when you get into it. It's really, really interesting how we work, how we connect, not just on a cultural level, but also on a deeper political level too. So without getting too dry, But,
well, we're going to talk politics later a little, sure. Not deeply, but because sure. I know what you did. But was there ever a moment where, because you seem really fascinated with that, was there ever a moment that you thought of following that? And I don't know what the job would have been, but.
Yeah, no, there was. My hometown, Newcastle, there's a part of Newcastle which is built on the remains of San Francisco. So on the north shore of the harbour, there's a breakwater, and all the ballast there is the rubble from the 1908 San Francisco earthquake. So when San Francisco was flattened, and I mean flattened, they had all this rubble, but they used as ballast in the ships. So the ships would sail from San Francisco to my hometown, unload the ballast, load up with coal and cedar and wool, and then come back to San Francisco. So part of my hometown was literally built on the remains of San Francisco.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. And when you get into the depth of it, it's really, really fascinating. It really is.
Oh, and I meant to, did you ever get your pilot's license because you wanted to go in the air? No.
Not yet. No, it's scary enough having a driver's license in Los Angeles.
Hey, you could still do it. You could still do it.
Harrison Ford still has his, yeah.
Hey, he had that crash landing and he's still flying.
He's crushing it. He's doing great.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, you can't, F with Indiana Jones.
No way. You do not screw with Indiana.
I think we're going to get another indie film soon, right? I think they filmed another Indiana Jones.
Bring it on. I'm ready for it. I love some more indie.
Bring it on. I love those movies. So General Hospital came about in 2014. Do you remember, what your agent said? And did you know what General Hospital was, or did you know what an American soap was?
Absolutely. I remember every bit of this because it was an incredible experience. I actually met Mark Teschner, the casting director, the year previously when I popped over for some meetings. So I met Mark there at a previous audition for an unrelated role. And then I came back in 2014 for pilot season. There's auditions. Everything was really exciting and quite busy. And then this one popped up.
So you were living in California when General Hospital, when you came over to meet with agents and stuff. So you weren't living here yet.
No, I was only supposed to be here for 8 weeks. I had enough money to last 8 weeks. Yeah. So I popped over in January 2014 just for auditions and things. It was week 3 or week 4 where the audition had come in, and Mark contacted my manager, Sandy, and said, look, did a great job, really liked him. But then it was just sort of radio silence for a while. And this industry teaches you, if it teaches you anything, it teaches you patience. So, well, if you can take it.
It doesn't run as fast as you would like it to go.
No, and I think it's sort of like you sort of got that ticking clock in the background too of, okay, in 4 weeks I'm out of money, in 4 weeks I'm out of money, so what's going to happen? And I was going to pick my mate up from the airport, an editor friend of mine, a really great editor, and he was coming over here for some meetings. I picked him up and I got a phone call saying I got the call back with the network, you beauty. So I popped in on Friday to do that. And Frank was there, Valentini, the EP, and quite a few other people. And I had these really bright pants because I knew he was a hippie dude, and I knew he was duplicitous, but I didn't know anything else because they keep everything really tight. And so I got these really funky sort of loose, bright, mirrored pants from a shop, from Iguana down on Hollywood Boulevard. And I just wore a singlet and my thongs, flip-flops over here, so there's no confusion. Although, might have worked. And I did the scene, and I just remember Frank said, "Yeah."
Oh, yeah. Sorry, you said thong, so
Thongs,
yeah. Got it.
So I remember
slow on the uptake.
We'll get it. So we did the scene. I remember I went in, I sat on the floor with my legs crossed, and just said, "Can I sit here?" They said, "Yep." And we did the thing, and we did it once.
Did you have to do it with anybody, or just with Mark and?
Oh yeah, no, there were about half a dozen people in there from memory, about 6. So Mark was there along with Frank and I think a couple of the other producers.
Oh, sorry, I meant any actors?
Oh no, it was just me. It was me basically reading with Mark. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So then I did that and I left, and I remember I was downstairs. I was talking to these 2 lovely ladies. Linda was one of them. I remember Linda. I think Donna, God rest her soul, who we lost recently. And I was chatting to them about something, I don't know, something. I was probably just trying to stay on the lot a bit more, because I just wanted to, I like the experience. And they turned out to be the makeup artists on General Hospital. And I think on the way, I was driving back home. I was driving back from Los Feliz back to my place up here in the hills, and I got the phone call. I still remember where I got it. I was on Cahuenga coming up to the 101, and my phone rang and juggling it around, I was like, and you got the role, and I went, oh my God. And it just kind of, because at that stage I knew it was only going to be for a few weeks. And all I could think was, great, cool, I get to stay here a bit longer. And that's 3 weeks turned into 9 months.
Wow. Yeah. Which I'm sure had all to do with you and your performance.
I hope so, mate. It was a lovely experience. And I think we had fun, and I think I came in at a good time too. They had this really earnest, they have their earnest storylines, and then they have their sort of fun ones, their sort of fun, frivolous ones. And Ryan and I had a lot of fun. Like, we're still good mates. We laughed and laughed playing these 2 roles. And I know that Ron Calavati was writing at the time, and he loved to sort of just twist the knife a little bit. Every time, Levi came on and got between Nathan and Maxie, it was just like, ooh, let's just twist that knife a little bit more and a little bit more.
I mean, I love his name, Dunkelman.
I know, isn't it great? It was great. One of my favorite lines, Maxie was fighting for custody of her daughter, and I stood up in court and I was like, yeah, I'm Levi from the Darwin Dunkelmans.
That's great. And you worked with Kirsten Storms, John J. York, Christina Wagner, is that?
Yeah. So I guess going back to your point too about soaps, is I knew of General Hospital. I knew that it was a real lineage, and I knew it was this incredible show with this huge history and this massive amount of fans. So stepping into it was quite remarkable. I remember in the dressing room there was a big, like a tome, like an encyclopedia, that sort of explained everything about the history of the show, the families, everything was linked in. And I just remember General Hospital was the one that we did not have in Australia, but I knew it was probably the biggest. So it was quite remarkable speaking to John and Christina, who had been on the show for decades. And then Kirsten, who again has her own profound and incredible career. And she was a beautiful person. She was great to work with, and especially for someone like me who had never done a soap like this, because even Home and Away, the Australian soap, is nothing like this. It doesn't shoot in any way similar to this. It doesn't it's more like a drama, whereas this is your 4 cameras. It's more like theatre, insofar as how it's blocked and performed. So having Kirsten, someone with such a wealth of experience, John and Christina and all the others, Teo as well, Teo Panglis, made a huge difference, big difference, especially for Ryan had only been on the show for a few months before me. So when we came on, it was great to have their experience and their support.
9 months. So, like you said, your Australian soaps aren't done the same way. What did working in that medium, because I know how fast General Hospital and all the American soaps work, what did that teach you?
Oh, it teaches you expediency. So, I didn't have many problems memorizing lines or things like that, because in Australia, any audition you go to, you've got to have your lines down. So that was second nature to me. What was...
Is that different than they do it here? Because I know people walk in with their sides here.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing too, because in here, you can have your sides in your hand as a point of reference, and that's actually pretty good. So in Australia, you're sort of raised, you're taught and you're educated to get your lines down, because it's not nearly as busy down there as it is over here. Although it can be. It's just in Australia, it can be feast and famine. Whereas here, it's usually pretty busy all the time. So just having that reflex made a big difference for me. But the biggest thing I learned from this was expediency, being on the spot, in the moment, and ready to go at the drop of a hat, which I think made me a better auditioner in the end, because you kind of got a lot more confidence working immediately in the moment, knowing that this is it. You maybe get 2, maybe 3 takes if you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
if you're lucky. And soap fans, they call it. They're kind of like, oh, that was crap today. And you go, all right, okay, that was not my best day. So you sort of you want to you want to be on song. But when you work with people like Kirsten and acting's just listening and bouncing off someone else. And when you have someone as experienced and talented as she is, it's very easy.
Mm-hmm. If another soap role came along, would you do it?
Oh, it'd be fun. Yeah, it'd be fun. I enjoyed it. I had an absolute blast doing it. It was a giggle and I think
what was the best part?
The best part of it was there's a few things. The fans were incredible because I got to have fun with them. It was really fun. Playing a bad guy is great. And also seeing the difference between people found Levi really creepy when he was passive aggressive and hippie and manipulative. They're like, oh, and then when he became Peter and he became like, my hair went from my shoulders up to where it is now, to this, gun-wielding, kidnapping maniac. Everyone was like, yeah, let's go. This is great. Here we go. So it was sort of like, it was funny seeing how Levi was just a bit too real for people. So that was really fun. The other part of it is I was in suspense every time. So we get our scripts, I think, a week or 10 days in advance. So you'll finish reading your scenes for 1 week and you go, oh, what's going to happen? So then you're in suspense for another 10 days until the writing staff comes out with the next round of material. So we're sort of, even though we're learning ahead of the audience, we're still hanging on, waiting to find out. Whereas
you're waiting for the next scripts to arrive.
Exactly. Whereas with most TV series, the arc is very clear and there's breakdowns and it's storyboarded and they've got the 10 episodes bookended. Whereas with this, it's evolving and moving on, which is a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Let's talk about the sequel. Let's talk about Dennis and Occupation Rainfall. Tell us how the first movie came about.
Yeah, Luke Sparke, who's a prodigious director from Australia, writer-director from Australia, he had this idea of basically doing like a Red Dawn kind of story about aliens invading the world, but in this case told from the point of view of a small country town, which I think is pretty cool. So he emailed me just out of the blue, just to call me and I just say, look, I know you're in LA and all this kind of stuff. And we knew people in common, like he'd worked with actors who I knew and things like that. So I knew who he was, and I knew his other film, Red Billabong. And having seen Red Billabong, I knew that he was a genre guy and he had a very clear vision for what he wanted, but he's a talented bloke. So he sent me an email and we just had a bit of a chat about it. I put a tape down and he said, yeah, mate, yeah, would you like to come down and do this? I said, sure, because I'd never done an action movie before either. I'd never done action or sci-fi.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so this was new to me. I've mostly done sort of dramas and a couple of comedies. So this was this was a departure for me, which made it really quite enticing.
I bet. So talk about that. The first time doing a sci-fi role like that. I mean, a real, not to, but a boys' movie. In some respects. I mean, girls I know love sci-fi, but we all grow up and we love to Star Wars and machine guns for some reason. Kids love those things.
Oh, look, I think it just goes back to sort of a lot of primal instincts as a kid, run around the bush, shooting imaginary enemies, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I did it with my cousin Cassie and all my other mates, and they're
G.I. Joes. I don't know if you did you have G.I. Joes?
Oh, yeah, we had G.I. Joe. See, I was a massive Transformers fan, still am. So, we had all the action figures, and we had heaps of Star Wars toys, and we were into this stuff. So, like, when you go along with Luke, who's a fanboy of these things anyway, and then you jump into this sort of world. It is a lot of fun. It's pretty hard not to enjoy yourself when you're on set running around and shooting aliens. It's sort of like it's and of course I watched Independence Day. I loved it. So it was quite exciting to step into that world.
When you took on the first movie, was there always talk of a sequel, or did it do so well and that came later?
Luke, I think we didn't really talk about it much when we were shooting the first one, but I think Luke always had an idea that he wanted to go further with it because there is a lot more to tell. In the first movie, Occupation, which is available on all streaming platforms, it alludes to a bigger battle happening elsewhere. So we know of something happening, and it ends on this big cliffhanger. It ends on this sort of revelation. Whereas even though we didn't really talk about much shooting it, Luke, I think, always knew he wanted to go for it. And then they greenlit the second one around about the time the first one came out because the pre-sales were pretty strong.
That's awesome. Tell us about Dennis, who you play.
Yeah, Dennis is fun. Dennis sort of evolved, and this is a great example of how just the simplest thing in filmmaking can have a huge effect. When the character originally came in, he was supposed to be like a tattoo artist. So he was this tattoo artist, this sort of ex-con tattoo artist trying to get his life back on track. And I was going to be covered in tattoos and all this kind of stuff. And they couldn't find, where we were shooting in Murwillumbah, we couldn't find
say that town again?
Murwillumbah.
Okay. Is that in Australia?
Yeah. So Murwillumbah, Murwillumbah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm glad I didn't have to pronounce that.
American accent would be, you guys would say Murwillumbah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So it's up on the north coast. It's a very gorgeous little town. But Luke couldn't find a tattoo parlor that was like grungy or dingy enough that sort of sold this character. Everything was quite sterile, because that's what it has to be. So in the end, he was like, I don't really know what to do. Like, what do you want to do with it? And I said, well, what if he's like an artist and he can still draw stuff, but what if he's trying to make his way like that? And then we got talking about him being a young homeless bloke, sort of just trying to get his way through life. But he's still a little bit shonky. He's still a little bit of a rat bag. He has problems with the police and a few other things. So that gives him an extra little bit of edge, and also makes him a little bit distrustful, and in a survival situation, because that's the other thing too with Dennis is he's lived his whole life on the street, sort of been overlooked, and then all of a sudden this happens, and everybody falls back to these sort of primeval necessities, and he's like, well, I've been living like this most of my life, so I can help you out. Yeah, but I think he also harbors a bit of resentment to people.
And where is he now in the sequel?
Yeah, he's in a great place in the sequel. He sort of becomes the vanguard for humanity. So he becomes like the overseer of the civilians and makes sure everybody's safe, families, community, things like that. Because it's a big military operation, and it's not going well. Yeah, it's not going well. You said it's huge. It's not going well for the human beings. So Dennis's job is essentially to make sure that people stay safe while this is happening, and they're also not forgotten, and that it doesn't turn into some sort of totalitarian regime. So it's kind of complex, but he also doesn't like the aliens because we've got alien allies, and there's some aliens break away and join the humans to try and sue for peace. And he's very sus on the aliens, but he also discovers that as this progresses, that humanity is not necessarily endemic to just humans.
I mean, it's really a great sci-fi film. I mean, like it really has something for everybody in it. Talk about shooting it. You were saying like how Luke shot the film, some of the special effects and that type of thing.
Yeah, Luke's got what he does is quite remarkable. He's got an incredible creative eye, but he also has a great practical and production eye too. So he knows what he needs to do and how he needs to get it in post. So he wears many hats, which is a lot for him to bear, but he does a great job because he sort of, even though I know it's a lot of hard work for him and it's exhausting, it does mean that he's always looking 10 steps ahead while he's shooting in this moment. So we had 2 studios on the Gold Coast, one of which was just turned into this sprawling complex of sets and things like that. So a lot of the sets that you see in the underground compound are real sets. There's only just like a green screen behind a window or something like that. So his art crew and his own production designers were brilliant at creating this rather immersive environment. And then the battle sequences, like my bus scene and things like that, was a real bus with real pyrotechnics and all this kind of madness. And then the special effect was really just the first AD, Johnny Reynolds, going around just banging the side of the bus with a big stick, just going bang, 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 and just scaring people. And that's pretty much all it was. And it was more than effective. A couple of guys just rocking it with a few broom handles. Right, the magic of the movies. So that was the real low end spectrum of it. The other end of it was things like the Voxes, which is that they call lizard pup. We call them lizard puppies because they're sort of these cute little animals that they ride in the movie, which are totally CG. And Luke had a few ideas in his mind about what they would look like, but that the look of the animals evolved over time. So when we were shooting them on set, there's a scene where I'm walking them into a truck, and all I did was just hold my hand here, the right height, and that was it. And then I didn't know what I was pulling. I didn't know what it was going to look like. And then I saw when you see the final cut, you go, wow, geez, that's it? That's incredible.
That's what I know actors do that all the time, pretending something is there. Yeah. But when you see it, it really must blow your mind. As the actor who's holding on, when you finally see that final cut, must be something else.
It is, Alan. I mean, I saw this movie for the first time in Australia in January, and I was astounded by what I saw. I knew Luke's technical capabilities and Alex Beckinsale, the visual effects supervisor. I knew their technical capabilities were significant, but they were breaking a lot of ground that was new to them. So I was astounded at what they achieved for this movie. There's some shots in it which I was blown away by. But then you got Gary the Alien, who was played by Ben Chisholm and voiced by Jason Isaacs. He was part practical effects. Oh, Lawrence McQuarrie. We can't talk about this without talking about Lawrence. Lawrence played Gary, and Ben and Jason played Steve. But they were practical effects. So they had, the head, the mask, and everything like that. And Lawrence, who's a prosthetic actor, that's like his job, is an actor who does all prostheses. So he was like the orcs and the Uruk-hai in Lord of the Rings. And he's this big Maori fella. He's an incredible guy. And so he wore the head and all that kind of stuff. And then they just put digital blinks in and little odds and sods here, and they're making breathe through his cheeks and stuff like that. But a lot of it was a practical effect that was made by some very talented
crazy people. You have no idea like the depths of what the whole crew has to do to make that final print.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but they pulled it off remarkably. And Lawrence was wonderful to see because he sort of went into this meditative state while he was getting buried in makeup every single day. So he was an amazing bloke to chat to.
Well, and you're an associate producer on the movie. How did that come about? And did you enjoy that role?
I did, Alan. It's a demanding role, and it is a lot of hard work. I mean, it wasn't nearly as hard for me as it was for the EPs and the producers, Carly and Carmel and Alex and Luke.
But how did it come about for you?
I brought some financing in for them for the final round of shooting because it was a very big budget. So I brought some financing in, but it was also a bit of a creative sounding board too because Luke's an extremely collaborative creator. He's a collaborative creative. He's the kind of director who's very open to ideas. He's not precious about things. He loves people to bring thoughts in. And if it makes it better, then of course he's going to use it. So that's a smart man.
A lot of people have an ego, but that's a smart man because if it can make it better, it only helps all of you.
Totally, yeah. No. Luke's not, and there are some directors who are auteurs and know exactly what they want to do. I mean, I wouldn't question like Ridley Scott, like something like, he's like, Ridley, are you sure you want to do this? Unless of course he asked. But Luke is that kind of guy who is up and coming, and he's very open to suggestions. When he's working with people like Tamora Morrison and Daniel Gillies and Ken, he loves that kind of experience. So my job as an associate producer was essentially just to sometimes help him with creative decisions if necessary. Like he would come to me with an idea, or we'd talk about it, and essentially just sort of to support him and to listen to things if necessary. But it was a big task because I'd shoot for 12 hours a day, you'd be on set acting, and then you'd go have meetings in the evening with the producers to talk about the next day. So sometimes it was just simple logistical stuff to give them a hand with things. Other times it was genuinely just helping with a creative choice if they needed some input.
Do you want to do more producing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. And we've sort of already done it anyway. And a lot of actors kind of, I think, step into this realm now, because I think producing is a creative job as well. Like, as much as it is business and accounting, it is also creative, because all those decisions go into helping create the product. And I really enjoy those conversations. I like talking about how it's going to look or how it's going to be, and listening to a director like Luke explain his vision and contribute wherever I think I can, if they seek it. So it is something that I do enjoy.
And I bet, actors are all doing their own, screen tests at home, or, auditions at home. So you're producing those types of things all the time.
Exactly right. You got your lighting, you got your camera.
Yeah.
Let's go from this angle. Can we just get a costume change? Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Daniel Gillies fan asked, if you could play another character from Occupation Rainfall, which one would you choose and why?
That's a good question. I'd go for Captain Wessex, who's played by Mark Cole-Smith. Now, if people don't know Mark is an Australian actor who is a funny, talented, incredible bloke who gave a brilliant performance in a movie called Last Cab to Darwin. And he's an Aboriginal actor, and he is amazing. He plays Captain Wessex, who's sort of like the real kind of like the real, what's the word I'm looking for? He's got the real swagger, he's the military dude. He comes in, saves the day. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's the kind of role.
Had you worked with him before?
No, I hadn't. I'd just been an admirer of Mark's work for a while. So actually meeting and working with Mark was fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome. It's got to be. What's the best part of doing a sci-fi film for you?
There's two things. Firstly, the immersion into the world, like being in it and amongst it, that's a lot of fun. And of course, the action element is great. And the world, being a part of that world building of, okay, what's happening, what values have shifted, what's changed, that kind of stuff is interesting, because then a cup of coffee in the sci-fi apocalyptic world isn't just a cup of coffee. It's a highly sought after commodity, kind of like I guess it is in general. But, everything changes in value in a world like that. The other thing is it's maybe a little bit ethereal, but finding the humanity in things, because a lot of great sci-fi, whether it's Blade Runner or whether it's The Fifth Element, is grounded in humanity somehow. Even Serenity, Firefly, one of my favorite shows and movies, is grounded in that cohesion, that push and shove in humans and egos. So that's always very interesting for me. And this movie, I think, gets deep into that, into what is the greater good for what is humanity.
Right, for the people.
Yeah.
Is this Zac's favorite genre?
Oh, mate, I like a lot of genres. I don't think I have a favorite. I don't, because I love doing comedy as much as I like doing sci-fi. But I think Tim Morrison talked about it recently in one of his interviews. Tim said, sci-fi can be a comedy as well as, an action drama kind of piece. So it can be a lot of things. So, but sci-fi is something that I grew up with, and I always sort of enjoyed watching, because a good sci-fi flick, like any good movie, it can be really gripping.
Yeah, totally. What was quarantine like for you? Did you learn anything about yourself that you didn't already know?
I think everybody learned a lot about themselves. For me, it was more about application, like learning how to use time wisely. Because I did two different kind of stretches with quarantine. Obviously, in LA, we had a bad experience at the start of the year. Then things were okay in the middle, then got really bad at the end. So you learn a lot about patience. You learn a lot about appreciation and your friends and your family. I mean, I live with my girlfriend, Alison, so we were obviously very close. And we went through a lot with this. So you learn a lot of tenacity, I think, but also how to apply your time with merit. So I did that here. And then when I went to Australia to do the promotion for the movie when it came out in Australia, I did 2 weeks in a hotel room because it's compulsory. When you went to Australia now, you got to do mandatory 2 weeks in a hotel room. So I was there in Sydney for New Year's Eve. And yeah, I know, but it's sort of interesting. Like I was in a 5-star hotel, so it wasn't like I was...
Right.
It wasn't like
you weren't suffering that bad.
No, it wasn't like I was zipped up in a tent somewhere. No, it was like, and the staff and there's nurses and doctors and psychologists and counselors, like they've got it together. And so I was literally in a hotel room for 2 weeks. And when I was there, I took some exercise bands down and kept myself busy. But I also said, well, I'm here, I want to write a short film. So, I sort of just ambled around the place and wrote something while I was there. And it wasn't necessarily about doing things to have them be the best thing ever or something like that. It's just about turning your mind over and staying busy. And I think that's what I got good at during quarantine, was trying to apply myself.
I mean, I know many actors, I probably just actors. I don't know that I know regular people who had too many times where they had to quarantine for, truly where you were being sort of monitored because you flew into the country. I can't really like to think about that to have to stay in that room. That's a lot. And the other thing I was going to say, about what you said about your girlfriend, it's really true. I mean, the quarantine could either strengthen or sadly, make things go south. And I think for most, it was a strengthening of sorts.
Yeah, it strengthens or it strains, and it 100%, Alan. And we were very lucky because we've known each other for a long time now. And if it wasn't for Alison, I wouldn't be here in Los Angeles, because I actually ended up, after I finished General Hospital, I had my lease in my place expired, and I moved in with Ali for 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave for Australia. And in that 2-week period, I got another job on another TV show. So that was sort of like, without her, I don't think I'd be here, really. So
does she do what you do? Is she an actress?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, actually, we're doing a project together in August.
Siri thought I was talking to her, so I couldn't hear what you said.
Hey Siri, is Alison Boyd an actress? Yeah. Oh, no, my Siri's talking to me. Okay, I'm going to put her aside.
She's an actress?
She is, yes.
Oh, okay, great. That is so funny. Well, I saw you definitely like posting photos of yourself in your Speedos. You were working out in your Speedo, your mate Speedos. I love it. Your mate Speedos. So funny.
One of my prized possessions. Yes.
From Australia, I assume.
It's from a gym called Training Mate here in Los Angeles, which is run by a bunch of Aussie guys I know. Of
course. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I touched on this briefly earlier. You wrote a piece about your experience working the polls during our U.S. election, even though for your hometown in Australia, but you weren't even able to vote here this past election, correct?
That's correct, Alan. Yeah. So I volunteered because they did say that obviously it was when things were getting pretty bad here in LA for the pandemic, and they were struggling getting volunteers over 40 because people were concerned about contracting the virus, because a lot of people who died, of course, were 50 older, and up. Yeah. So they were worried naturally for their health. So I put my hand up and said, look, I'd love to do it if I can, and I was selected from the group of volunteers. And I was trained, and I worked the polls. I handed people their ballots, and I counted them, and I made sure people could vote.
What was that like?
It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful, and I loved it. Partly because the democratic process here in the United States was being attacked at the time by the previous president, which I found absolutely absurd and ludicrous. And in Australia, voting is compulsory, so you have to vote in Australia, or you get fined the huge amount of $20.
Wait a minute. You have to vote.
Yeah. So you don't, let's just clarify that. You don't have to pick a candidate. You just have to show up and get your name crossed off. You can go and get stuffed on the ballot and stick it in the box if you want to. But yeah, you are automatically sent the enrollment papers when you turn 18, no matter where you live, and that's it. Yeah, that's it. So we're one of, I think, only 5 or 6 countries in the world where it's automatic for people to start voting, and it doesn't matter where you are. So I live in California, and they send me my ballot here. So it's really simple. It's really, really simple. The voting process in Australia is always on a Saturday. We always vote on Saturdays.
That makes it easier.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why. And they've done this for years now. There's barbecues and cake stalls, and the whole notion of voting there is much more of like a community experience. So I
had me a barbecue.
Yeah. If you can Google this is real too for people listening. You can Google something called a democracy sausage. So in Australia, you go to the barbecue and you get a democracy sausage, which is just like it's a sausage sandwich basically. But it's
you learn a new thing every day.
Yeah, and it's a big thing. So like it's at public schools, and people talk about the best voting booths to go to based off the food. So the democratic experience in Australia is, because it is compulsory and because people are automatically enrolled in it, it means the tension, I think, is lowered because everybody's a part of it. Whereas here, you're fighting it to get people to vote. And then, of course, you throw in all these absurdities that people were saying about the voting process, and people become disheartened or apathetic towards it. So I wanted to be a part of it to kind of show that, voting's for everybody. Democracy is global. And I come from a country where, democracy is crucial to our process, and it's deeply protected, deeply protected. And I wanted to contribute in part to a country that has been really great to me.
Well, we thought it was pretty protected here too, up until January 6th, really.
Well, it was sort of funny because I had some people accusing me of being in on the rig, which is very funny. And like, it was really strange. So when I wrote the article in Australia, I wanted to explain very clearly. The last person who I helped vote was a lady in her 90s. She was an African-American lady in her 90s. And my job was essentially to help her to the voting machine, take care of her, and make sure that she could get in, get out safely. So when she was not allowed to vote in the United States, if my maths is correct, until her mid-30s. So she was 94 or 95 voting in this election. And she has only been able to vote in the United States for 60 years. So that kind of experience really brings it home to me of just how important this process is, and also how crucial it is for people in the United States to stand up for it.
Really is. And it's crazy that, Black people didn't have the right to vote. Women didn't have the right to, I learned in the 2016 election, that women didn't have credit cards until the mid 70s. It blew my mind. For some reason, that fact just really blew my mind that in the 1970s, they could have credit cards. They could only have them in their husband's name. They couldn't have them in their own name.
Exactly.
For some reason, that fact still just, because I was, a teenager in the late, just crazy to me. Crazy.
No, well, that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, bizarre. But kudos to you for doing that for us. Because it wasn't for you really, because you couldn't vote.
Exactly. But that wasn't important to me. Voting here wasn't really important. What was important to me is that other people did, and other people could. And people could trust the process here, and I wanted to show that yes, I'm here and I'm an employee and I'm a migrant to this country. I'm an immigrant, and I have a green card. But this is what democracy means to me.
Right. I mean, I'm going to let you just keep repeating it because that's just an important statement. It mattered to you when you couldn't even, contribute and vote yourself, and. For so many who are discounting what happened, the results of that election without checking facts, because facts matter.
Yeah, and I think the thing is too, we're in this age where misinformation travels so quickly, and people love the sexiness, the salaciousness. Say, "Oh, did you hear this? Oh, did you hear that? I read this thing somewhere." And it's so these things are always just absurd. And it doesn't take a great deal of digging before you go, "Well, that's just not entirely true." But I think the truth is not sexy. It's like
No,
our
it's not.
counting, the counting process for these ballots. I swear to God, Alan, it was like when I worked in the pub in Australia. It was like balancing the cash register at the end of the night. You just make sure that you have as many votes there as you had people come through the door, and they literally locked the doors. So we're locked in with the votes until everything is tallied and tabulated and accounted for by 3 different parties. So 3 different people have to come in and say, that matches, that matches, that matches. All right, unlock the doors. You can all go home now.
At the polling place that you worked, 3 different people count all of the ballots that were submitted there.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing. One of our viewers, Sabra, she said, I'm not usually into sci-fi, but when she saw that you and I were doing this interview, she watched the first movie. Amazing beyond words. I'll be watching the sequel.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. Thank you, mate. Yeah, the sequel is literally, I think it's literally 4 times bigger as far as the budget is concerned, and also as far as the spectacle. It's massive.
Oh, really? What? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, the budget for the first one was $6 million. This one's 25.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that just adds right there the special effects.
It does indeed. It's all on the screen.
Totally. That's amazing. So you got to experience your first United States snowstorm on a shoot in Pennsylvania. Tell us about that.
This is okay.
And wait, wasn't that another Speedo shot in the snow?
I wanted a sluggo shot in the snow. We had to
that's smart. That's a great photo.
It had to be done. Yes, I had to do that in the snow because I was literally in Australia about 72 hours beforehand. So we just wrapped Rainfall in Australia. It was December in Australia. I was on the beach. Life was, it was just summer down there. And my friend Chris Kramer, who's a wonderful and talented director, and his company Honor, we're doing this movie in Pennsylvania called The Seance in this 112-year-old B&B in Edensburg, Pennsylvania. So I came back to LA. I was in LA for 5 seconds, and I was talking to a fellow who was from Michigan. He said, "Have you got your have you got some warm clothes?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I got my jeans. I got my leather jacket." And he went, "Oh no, mate. Have you got warm clothes?" And I said, "Yeah, I got some." He said, "No," and he explained to me what I needed. And of course, I didn't do it because I'm an idiot. I got to Pennsylvania, and it was like squally snowstorms, and it was like Willy Wonka's factory to me. I'm like, "Oh my god, this is amazing! It's snow," because I'd never seen snow before.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it was the best way. So I was outside in between my setups. I was outside, feeling the squall and the breeze and running around, and I was like a little kid. And of course, I had to get the obligatory Speedo shot too because it just seemed appropriate.
It's in the snow, those kind of shots are great.
Yeah.
Cold for you? Not in the Speedo, but yeah. I meant Pennsylvania because your friend was, trying to tell you.
It was absolutely cold there. I promise you, I got frostbite in places I shouldn't get frostbite. No, Alan, we went for a walk one night down the back because I wanted to hear the forest. I always heard how quiet it is in the snow. So I went down and we're in the forest at the back of the property, and it was stunning. It was eerily still. You could hear the trees groan as they swayed, and my fingers went numb. And we didn't go too far. We maybe went 400 feet from the house, but my fingers went numb and my nose went numb. And of course, I didn't have any goose down jackets. I didn't have any of that stuff because I'm a dope. And I just had my leather jacket, my leather gloves, and my jeans. And I remember I got back to the house. I had this warm shower, and it took probably 4 to 5 minutes before the feeling came back into my hands. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, it spun me out. And it was
living in California, you won't experience that kind of cold.
Nope, not at all.
No, absolutely not. And The Seance, what kind of role? It's a horror movie, right?
Yeah, it's a horror movie. It's about a guy who claims he can contact with spirits, and a YouTube skeptic, who has this big YouTube channel. She goes along to debunk him. And they discover in the process that, there's actually a bit of science behind what he does and how he does it. So it's kind of cool. And I play Sean, who's like a frat boy best mate of the guy who discovers he can do these things. And I think I'm in on the joke until we realize, no, this is a bit more serious than we thought.
Amazing. And then you just finished another movie.
Yeah, I just finished another movie called Zero Road, where I play. This is a departure again. I play a fat meth selling trailer living drug dealer in Casper, Wyoming.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had a big fat, big prosthetic fake stomach, and he's not a particularly nice guy, but it was a lot of fun to do that because we shot the movie takes place in Casper, and it's from a young guy called Chance Sanchez, and it's about his life in Casper, trying to get away from the place. It does get a little bit dark, and it does get a little bit heavy because it's a pretty raw portrayal of how hard life can be when you're trying hard to escape somewhere. And my character is not really helpful in that regard.
Interesting. Oh, that sounds interesting. Is Casper where Matthew Shepard was? Do you know Matthew Shepard? Do you know that name?
I know Matthew Shepard's name, yeah.
He was the gay young kid who was tied to a fence and killed many, many years ago.
Oh my goodness.
But no, it was Laramie, Wyoming.
Laramie. Yeah,
it was Laramie.
Laramie's not much further out than Casper. So Casper is this very cute little town up in Wyoming, and it was quite remarkable being there. It was fascinating to speak to people and see the.
Was that your first time there too?
Yeah, no, it was my first time to the Midwest.
You're getting to see the United States. That's so awesome.
I'm really excited. I get to see these things. That's what I love about the United States is the diversity and the culture and the community shift and evolve wherever you go. My girlfriend's from Alabama, so we're heading down to Birmingham.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We go to Birmingham in Alabama in a couple of weeks to go see her family. So we're going to Tennessee, Alabama, and then up to Georgia. So it's nice. That's really exciting.
I was in Birmingham. I'm trying to pandemic year now. I can't remember, but maybe 2019, first time for the first time. Just on a business trip, but it was cool.
It's a cool place. Yeah.
Well, so much history there. Speaking of history, so much history.
Oh, and they live in it too. That's what I loved about the South is they live in it, and like the 16th Street Baptist bombing and all these kinds of things.
I went to the church. I went to the museum across the street. Yeah. Amazing.
They're serious about it, really serious about it, Alan. And it kind of reminded me of when I was in Germany, like just being amongst the history of Germany there where they live with it. Likewise in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, they live with it there. So the South is very similar. And even when I was in Casper, their connection to the Native American experience is very, very deep. So, when you get across America, you catch this sort of spectrum of what the history of this country is like. And it's not bad at all because it's there and it's there for us to understand and to learn and to grow. And I don't think it's ever a bad thing to talk about these things. You're speaking to someone whose mother and father were Holocaust survivors. Really?
Yeah. So it took me a long time to fully understand what they had been through, but it's an incredible, and the people who saved my mother, I'm still close with today, like their ancestors. But, it's sad when people don't want to acknowledge history in whatever form. The South, World War II. These things happen. We can only learn from them to make sure that they never happen again.
Without question, mate. And like your family, your parents have gone through something that I can't even comprehend how you can facilitate that in your life. That's something that's going to live forever in your family. That's staggering. But it
is. Yeah, it's something. And as a kid, you don't really grasp that, but you're right. It is. I know my parents suffered their entire lives, until they died. There's no doubt. My mother lost her dad. My dad lost his sister. Those are things that stick with people.
Yeah, and totally meaninglessly too. Like it all comes from prejudice and hatred. And if we don't, and that's why I guess talking about these things, like in Germany, they take it so seriously, and it's not something they shy away from in any way.
Conversations, we all, just speaking to you, we all learn from something. You can all learn from a conversation. It's so important, and it's something that I didn't realize as much, but I think we all can learn. Is there a role that you're dying to play?
Yeah, there's a few things that I would really love to do. I think there's a project I've been working on for a few years now called The Ballad of Les Darcy, which is a true story about this remarkable young boxer who died in America in 1917. So, I'd love to.
Never heard of him.
Oh, his story is remarkable. He was the Muhammad Ali of his time. He refused to go fight in the First World War, and he was chastised for it and chased out of Australia, came to America. The Americans let him fight, but then just as he was about to fight, he literally dropped dead. From blood poisoning. Are
you writing it?
I've written that with my friend Tom Arthur, based on a book by Peter Fitzsimons. So it's a remarkable story. He literally died in the arms of the woman he loved. So it's kind of it's quite beautiful and touching. So there's definitely that. I would love to.
I mean, that right there, that's a beautiful. The whole beginning, middle, and end of the story is incredible. Wow,
it's a remarkable story. So there's that. I guess the other side of the spectrum, I'd love to be in something like Rogue Squadron, like that with Patty Jenkins. That'd be so much fun doing that. So Rogue Squadron, if you guys are out there, give us a yell. And Spielberg's got this new show called Masters of the Air, which is happening on Apple TV, which I think is an incredible story about the B-17 bomber crews in the Second World War. So that's something that really draws a lot of enticement for me as well.
Is that out yet?
No, I don't. No, I think they're only rolling cameras, I think, later this year.
Do you watch a lot of stuff? Streaming, movie? Yeah,
all the time, mate. And I'm lucky to have a lot of friends who are directors and writers who have things come out, and you look forward to watching their stuff, and then you see their thing. And then you see these actors they work with, and then they'll say to you, "I'll go watch them in this," and then the dominoes sort of line up from there. So we watch a lot. Like we're watching Underground Railroad. There's a show on FX called Mr. In Between by Scott Ryan and Nash Edgerton, which is amazing.
Mr. In Between? Yeah,
Mr. In Between is really good.
Because I watch a lot on FX. I don't think I've heard that one.
It's an Australian show. It's only like a half hour. It's about a guy who's he's not quite a hitman. He's not quite a fix-it guy. He's not a bad guy or a good guy. He's sort of in this funny liminal space. It's a very good show. So Mr. In Between, Underground Railroad, Domina on Epix. My mate Claire McCarthy did that on Epix, which is really, really cool. And
the amount of material just blows my mind.
Yeah.
These are, and I watch a lot myself, and I haven't heard of these. You know what I mean? Like it's the amount of stuff. Yeah, it's incredible.
That's exactly right. And every week I watch a show in Australia every week called Mad as Hell, which is like a John Oliver kind of sketch political satire show that my mate Tosh Greenslade is in. So I watch a lot of stuff, and it's
my husband and I got turned on to Wentworth.
Oh, Wentworth's great.
Look, hands down one of the best prison shows ever. Those women are phenomenal.
All of them are amazing actresses. Nicole, Danielle, Celia, Aaron Jeffrey, who was in The First Occupation, is in Wentworth as well. And what I love about Wentworth is how the Americans have embraced it. I think it's just incredible.
Right. I mean, I was turned on by, I think, our neighbors or somebody here, basically, and we binged it and I've turned everybody onto it.
Oh, good. Good on you. Thank you for that.
No, it's phenomenal. Zac, it has been such a pleasure. Everybody, Occupation Rainfall is out tomorrow. Check it out. Best of luck to you, and stay in touch.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. And yes, check out Rainfall in cinemas and on demand from tomorrow. It's very entertaining. It's very easy to watch. So thank you so much for chatting.
Totally easy. And hey, thank you. You're a great guy to talk to.
My pleasure, mate. Anytime.
Have a great afternoon.
See you, mate.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, Occupation Rainfall is out tomorrow. Check it out. It's video on demand, in theaters, all of the above. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do so right below. Turn on the notifications. Get reminded of all the upcoming shows. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.